Welcome back, everyone, to another installment of Future Past Vintage Collectibles weekly videos. Today we're talking about comic books from the 1980s. Are they good for investment? What do collectors think? Let's talk about the 1980s. Before we unpack all of that, please know that Rachel and I are live on Instagram every Monday night, 5 p.m. Pacific time, selling bronze and copper high-grade comic books. Check it out if you've never been to a claim show. It's a good place to start. We're also some other places.
Yeah, we do a Buy It Now feature on Instagram as well, where we make posts with books for sale. On the screen, I'm showing you some of them. So definitely check that out. We also post every single week on eBay. So definitely follow us over on eBay. We post tons of high-grade bronze, copper, modern, slabs, all raw books, all sorts of stuff. So definitely check it out over there as well.
And lastly, we buy comic collections. If you're thinking about selling your collection, if you're looking for someone who might really want to get them, that's me. Please find us in the description. You can find our contact information. Thanks.
Or scan this QR code right here to reach out to us.
Okay, so 1980s. What do you know about the 1980s? You might remember that the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Reagan era. There's some other things that were noteworthy in the 1980s.
Nintendo Entertainment System was created in the 1980s, which is a huge part of the culture of the 80s, video games.
And the culture today.
And the culture today in my life, every day.
Yep.
Things like Pac-Man, Legend of Zelda.
I was obsessed with the third installment, Link.
We have Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong. All of those came out in the 80s.
Let's not forget some of the other pop culture stuff. He had Michael Jackson's Thriller. I think it's still the highest selling album of all time. Madonna's Like a Virgin single came out. Kind of changed pop music and the way it was going at the time. Brought kind of a gritty edge. MTV started in 1981, and I'm here to tell you, me and my friends were planted in front of our televisions just waiting for our favorite rock band. For me at the time, it was the Scorpions. Show a Scorpions video, but instead we got Duran Duran, Hungry Like a Wolf, and believe me, I got to know that by heart. Loved that culture that started to change in music. Also films. There was movies like Top Gun, Scarface. I mean, who can forget Scarface? And let's not forget Dirty Dancing, because you never put baby in a corner.
Never.
Never. So that was some of the stuff going on.
Also, Walkman was a big deal in the 80s. And me, growing up in the 90s, I also loved a Walkman.
We want to talk about freedom. We went from having these huge systems to then boom boxes in the 70s.
Then little cassette
and then
players.
little earphones with something you could put on your belt so you could do your aerobics in the 80s and walk and play a tape.
Also, like in the realm of art, we've got a lot of graffiti, breakdancing in the 80s. The 80s were popping.
The 80s were a vibrant, colorful, inspired era. And at the time, everyone thought everything was cheap, cheeky, too much pastel, too many headbands and leg warmers. There was just a lot going. Jane Fonda's workout videos were like a big thing. But I'll tell you, in popular culture, for instance, this album, Cultosaurus Erectus by Blue Oyster Cult, came out in 1980. One of my favorite albums of all time. And there was lots of killer music, great album covers. I'm not even going to get into that today. At some point, we're going to get into the album covers. Music was my biggest passion. Music, I liked reading, read comic books since I was 5 or 6, but also listened to music. The 80s, I kind of diverged really deeply into music. But my brother stayed in comic books. So it was the late 80s when I got back into collecting. Late 80s, early 90s. And I was going back to the 80s to get some stuff that I missed while I was busy listening to Blue Oyster Cult and some other bands. And I really found it to be an era that I'm excited about. Real quick, we specialize in that. When I started this business, I said, I want to sell books I like, so I'm going to sell books from the Bronze and Copper Age. One reason was because I didn't see a lot of competition just focusing on that. Everyone seems focused on Silver Age or Modern.
Or Golden.
Or Golden. Absolutely Golden Age. It's a little harder to sell because it's more expensive, but there are people that's all they sell. I said, well, there needs to be somebody that sells bronze and copper and knows a lot about it, and I decided to bite off that. Even now, 4 years later, I'm still really passionate about these eras, and tonight we're talking about a big piece of it, the 1980s, what we call the Copper Age of comics.
Yes. One big defining factor of comic books in the 1980s was the migration from comic books being sold in convenience stores with a barcode on the front to being directly sold to comic book stores with a direct label.
Yeah, so barcodes were still pretty new. They weren't happening in the early 70s. They picked up as a way for people to ring up a comic book electronically into their software that they were starting to get for their cash registers. In the 1980s, they worked out deals with comic book stores where they would send them to them directly rather than charging back comics. Like a 7-Eleven didn't sell something, they'd rip the cover off the comic, sell the covers back, and get a refund. So they ended that, but what they created was a big discount. So I think a comic book store was paying about 30% of cover price. So they had some room to really make a profit if they ordered correctly.
I found a message on a CGC board thread from Bradley X2 from 2006. And here's what he had to say. I'll throw it up on the screen as I read it. Starting around the mid-'80s, places like 7-Eleven didn't want to have a comic book rack that would net them maybe $20 a week, when a video game that took up the same amount of space would make them double.
Interestingly, and here's what's interesting. That's a great viewpoint. But also, having comic book stores grow like they did in the 80s, and they really did. I mean, they exploded. And just going in to buy comic books really kind of opened the market up to where, rather than having a spinner rack with 20 or 30 books on it, all of a sudden you have all of these back issues. You've got all of this stuff that used to only really go through like different periodicals to buy comics in the mail. Sometimes comics would even have like a double truck ad in the middle saying buy used comics. So all of these stores really started to pile up. Conventions, comic book conventions really got cranked up in the 80s. So it was like the dawn of a new age for comic books. It really put a lot of attention on comic books.
Well, it also allowed people to buy back issues more easily because they were available. Because the stores couldn't return the books that didn't sell anymore. So they just had excess of books that didn't sell previously. So now they have a bunch of back issues that they can sell.
Right. Think about it. You're ripping off all these covers off Giant Size X-Men 1, sending them back.
Can you believe
but
that?
if the comic book store had them, they just put them in their back stock. They would hold on to them. So it really kind of changed the dynamic of like how many issues that were printed were actually saved in decent shape. It made them more available. And you'll see that in some of the census numbers we'll throw up later.
Yes.
So as we break down each era, and we're going to go all the way back to the 1930s, we rate these eras and we point out certain key factors. We're certainly not going to go over everything that happened in the 80s because we'd be here for 10 hours, but or longer. How do we break that down?
Our rating scale is 5 different key points, and each key point has a rating from 1 to 5. So the key points are availability, demand, price, track record of sales, and relevance. And at the end of the video, we'll rate each of these key points from low to high. And so stay tuned to the end. You can find out with us if we gave it a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 as far as like buying from this era.
Buying and also investing. I mean, sometimes different data or different perspectives might send you in a direction that you might not have looked at before. And then even before we go on, we never recommend that anyone only invest in comics. Try to invest in the most expensive like they would the stock market. Because as you know, 95% of people that invest in the stock market lose. If you're not passionate about comics, if you don't love comics, boy, I'd recommend staying away from them as an investment because you need to know what you're buying. You really need to understand. And that's what these videos are about. We're trying to share a wealth of knowledge, not only from me, not only from Rachel, but from all the people that we talk to. We do this every day of the week, full time. Been doing it for years. I've been around comic books my whole life. Still learning all the time, still growing, still getting new opinions. So we want to share that with you and give you a place to do that as well. Let's get into this era, which is a fantastic era. And before we go any farther, I asked my brother, I said, do you want to say something about 1980s comic books? And he sent me this.
Dave, if you ask me, the 80s is actually like a renaissance of comics. For a comics fan, the 1980s had some of the absolute best creator material you could actually hope for. Like the reading and the quality of the art was probably unparalleled since the early Silver Age Marvels. There are so many titles that I enjoyed reading. Saga of the Swamp Thing, Wonder Woman, New Teen Titans. I could just go on and on. It was just a great time to be a comics fan.
Let's kick it off with comic book artists that were prevalent in the 1980s.
And we're not naming all of them.
By far.
Lot.
We're just pointing out ones that really, need to be pointed out. And then feel free to drop into the comments artists that meant a lot to you that we might happen to miss. Number 1, John Byrne.
Ever heard of it?
Yeah, one of my favorite artists of all time. This was his heyday. This when he was creating some great stuff. He's coming off of a killer run in the late 1970s from X-Men into the 1980s, finishing it up. But he was all over the place. He was in Fantastic Four. as well as the writing, which he's known for being a great writer. Alpha Flight, which really had some killer covers in the beginning, and it was a new X-team, a new mutant team. There was a lot of people reading that book, and it was popular. Even in DC, he did Man of Steel, Superman, and he did the very first variant cover when they sold more than one version of a cover to the wide market. So that's a notable thing. John Byrne was all over the place, did, I don't know, hundreds, if not 1,000 comic covers. He was probably the most sellable comic cover artist of the era.
And Chris Claremont worked with him a lot, so we just want to mention him too.
His work with Chris Claremont is second to none. I think that anyone who's an X-Men fan can contest to that, and they did some stuff together, and they were just known as a great team.
Another artist is Frank Miller, best known for in the 80s, I think, his Daredevil covers.
Before we even get into Frank Miller, shoot me one of his recent covers right here. All right. That guy.
He did some really cool Daredevil covers in the 80s, and you already probably know about them.
Well, don't forget, he also did the Wolverine limited series
yes,
covers.
and Batman Dark Knight Returns, which have some sick covers as well.
Very blocky, chunky. I mean, it was really unique art, but I remember a lot of people really liking Frank Miller's entrance into the market.
We also have Walter Simonson, who did a great run in Thor, and so many other covers too.
Created Beta Ray Bill, one of the most popular Thors from this era. That was like a 6-year run in Thor, the Walter Simonson. And he's got my favorite signature, by the way.
He's got a really good signature.
Yeah, I've had a Walter Simonson signed book, and I was enamored with his signature looking exactly like Neil Adams was kind of sloppy, or Bernie Wrightson would not even, I mean, he'd scribble. Not Walter Simonson, man. He had the 0 with the 2 scratch marks in it. Fantastic artist, really well thought of.
Yes. What about Bill Sienkiewicz?
Did we say it right?
I think so.
All right.
So his Moon Knight covers in the 80s are some of my favorites. Honestly, I love them.
I think he's one of the most unmistakable artists that you could see one of his covers from 50 feet and know it's him.
Yeah.
Everything looked like it got a little bit wet or it was made with watercolor.
Yeah.
He was a bit scratchy. His lines were not clean and deliberate. They really seemed like he was sketching that turned into a painting. He has a huge fandom, including me. Rachel, she's been around comics for 4 years. She could be underwater and tell if it's Bill
I know his
Sienkiewicz.
signature. Also, Mike Zeck, one of Dad's faves.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite artists. Mike Zeck really made his name in the 80s. And he showed up on some of the books that we're going to profile.
Yeah, he's done some covers for some really big books in the 80s, as I'm sure you know if you're here.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Mike Zeck art, or if you're more into modern, it's definitely somebody you want to check out.
Art Adams is another big artist in the 80s.
Incredible artist. He did the Long Shot series. He did some Fantastic Four stuff. Show a few issues of the Fantastic Four part that I like right here. Mm-hmm. Art Adams, to this day, I think he is such a distinctive artist. He kind of reminded me of George Perez, who's also on this list. Him and George Perez had some similarities to me, that they were very detailed, and I really like that.
Al Milgrom?
Al Milgrom did some great stuff in the Avengers, and his covers... there was a great slew of comic artists in the 80s. There was not a shortage, and they're really known for their 80s work, and he's absolutely one of them.
And then to round up the Marvel artists, we have Todd McFarlane.
The Toddster.
The Toddster.
He was kicking it off.
Iconic covers in the 80s that we will go deep into later.
Yep.
How about some DC artists? George Perez is another great artist. The thing that comes to mind first to me is Wonder Woman. His revamp of Wonder Woman is great.
Incredible. And by the way, later on in the series, I don't know if you know this, John Byrne took over for him.
I didn't know that.
And
that makes sense.
The John Byrne covers were cool. So Wonder Woman is like this series people don't talk a lot about. Got a little bit hot during the comic boom. But wow, the interior art, exterior art, just phenomenal.
And then Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Intense. I mean, and by the way, that storyline really did a lot for the comic book fandom. Cleared up some dead characters and some real continuity issues. But he took that project, and I think he needed a year break when he was done, because he had drawn everyone there was to draw in the DC universe.
On
you know
one
what I'm
cover.
saying? Yeah.
Brian Boland.
Anyone who collects comics, who likes Batman a little, has seen Batman and the Killing Joke. What a killer cover. That book is in high demand. We never have an issue selling a copy, no matter what grade it's in.
Or what print it is, honestly. Like
5th print?
All the prints
no
sell.
problem. His work on Animal Man later on, some of my favorite. Just show a few Animal Man covers just to kind of...
He does love Animal Man.
Well, it's so funny because no one talks about it. I do, and every once in a while someone will message me saying, yeah, that Animal Man run written by Grant Morrison. Brian Boland's covers, people will point it out to me and I'm like, right? Brian Boland's covers are incredible. Anyway, moving on.
Jim Aparo is a big one.
Jim Aparo, you remember, he was doing some of the horror stuff from the 70s. He was still around, kicking, and he was still popular, so he did a lot of work in the 80s as well.
Yeah. To wrap up the DC, we have Norm Brayfogle. We wanted to mention him because he did one of Dad's favorite covers in Detective.
The 80s is a great era for comic covers. And Detective Comics 585 is indicative of another cover, and there's tons of covers like this, that when I see it, it does something funny to me. I'm like, I was telling Rachel as we were researching for this, like, I don't own a copy of this and I want one. She said, you've had plenty. I'm like, no, I want a pristine one and I want to keep it. Because not only do I like the cover, it's because I like the story. And I really like what they did in the Suicide Squad with the Ratcatcher. This is the first appearance of the Ratcatcher with Ratcatcher 2, or his daughter. I'm kind of tied into the story of Ratcatcher. Anyway.
We're going to talk about indie artists now. Independent comics kind of blew up in the 80s.
Yeah, they went to a black and white format. They went to edgier, more adult themes. They were definitely not aimed at children. More violent, more gritty, and there was some really good artists who represent that.
Yeah, the first one up is Dave Gibbons.
Yeah, the Watchmen series was really popular, and it was also popularized in media through, had several movies, had a series on HBO. Later on, yeah, people liked that version of it as well, but these comics were popular then, and they're popular now. You'll notice these covers are not as elaborate. They're more like, I don't know, fine art, or maybe even more commercial art type covers. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And then Eastman and Laird?
We all know who this is, and at the time, I remember thinking how silly I thought that was. My brother tried to get a copy. I didn't.
We're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, what are you, turtles, you know? Boy, was I wrong? Was I wrong? How popular could something be? But yeah, their covers, their work, the themes that they brought, so popular. Mm-hmm. Right in with that NES culture, and MTV and everything that was going on. This was in cartoons in the 80s. They immediately
had a live action TV show.
Yeah, it immediately went all over pop culture, and kids loved it. And I don't think it was written for kids, but anyway.
Kind of. Jamie and Gilbert Hernandez, who made Love and Rockets.
Now, you may not even be familiar with this series, or if you are, you might like, yeah, wait till we talk about how desirable some of these books are. So you're seeing some of the covers right now. Great art. And the theme was also really appreciated at the time. Cult following, hard to find books.
Yes. And then the final artist we're talking about right now is Dave Stevens.
And there's more, right? I'm Richard Corbin and some other people that were doing some incredible work. Dave Stevens, though, really stood out in the good girl genre. I'm here to tell you that he just, there was a documentary that was just released and brought him back into the spotlight, and collectors chased after his books, and then it cooled right off. And one thing I can tell you is later on they're going to be sought after again. Doesn't matter if it cools off. These have staying power because Dave Stevens' work is remarkable. And he kicked it all off with The Rocketeer in this era.
So in the 80s, a lot of new characters were introduced in comics.
Like Cloak and Dagger debuted in 1982, got their own run.
Alpha Flight in 83, West Coast Avengers in 84, Power Pack.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite series, Power Pack.
I couldn't sell a Power Pack comic book if my life depended on it. There's a really cool Galactus cover, though. You show that right here.
But that cover's cool because Galactus, not because of Power Pack.
It was a kid superhero team rather than teenagers like the Teen Titans or the Legion of Superheroes. These are kids, so
little babies.
Yeah, it's not as popular now, but it was popular then. It ran for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Also, Dazzler was introduced in 1980.
Dazzler was a popular series then, and it was a popular series in the last few years. We've sold a lot of Dazzler comics.
We sure have.
So cool character, new to the 80s. So what series was it that kicked off what we're going to call a micro series? Or they didn't even know what to call it.
I think they called it that. It was World of Krypton.
It was 1979?
79. So like not technically 80s, but it did kick off a spew of limited series.
And they didn't call them miniseries for quite a while, but once they kicked in, it would be, miniseries. But here's some examples. boy, it went nuts in the 80s.
Yes, get a snack. 'Cause we're about to list a bunch of stuff.
And this is not complete.
No, of course
by
not.
a stretch, it's not complete.
Please let us know below the ones that we missed, because I know that we missed some. We have the Wolverine Limited series, which has some sick covers.
Yeah, Frank Miller pulled all the stops. I think that it was the best covers he's ever drawn.
Yeah,
personally.
the Punisher miniseries, which Mike Zeck did, I believe.
Yeah, and a very unusual art for him. It really stands out as being quite different than the other stuff, almost cartoony, where he is more of a realist artist. But yeah, that miniseries was very popular at the time.
Marvel Superhero Secret Wars.
Mike Zeck again, yep.
Everybody knows what that is.
You guys know what that is, and we talk about one of these books a little later.
I wonder which one. And also Secret Wars 2.
Yep.
Which is a popular series as well.
Still popular. I have no problem selling anything from either one of those series today. Crisis on Infinite Earths, I think it's 12 issues. Still popular. Some of these issues, Death of Supergirl, probably the one that stands out the most besides the first issue. Dark Knight Returns, another great series.
Oh, my favorite cover is the big Batman one. Big Batman.
Really cool series. V for Vendetta, not as popular now, but super popular then. They made a movie about it.
I love that movie.
Really cool series. Once again, The Watchmen, another cool miniseries. Hercules, not as popular now, but at the time, very popular to bring this character into his own miniseries. I don't think it ever really took off in terms of like the fandom to get a long-running series.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Hercules stuff out there.
Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger had a miniseries at the time that was real popular. Transformers miniseries, really comic book based off a toy that just took off in the comic book form.
And also Vision and Scarlet Witch, which had a 12 limited series run and another run.
Yeah, they had 2 runs.
Yeah, and then Kitty Pryde and Wolverine is another one that I thought about at the very last second. There's so many, and I know that we missed some.
Yeah, and we've sold all of these books.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff we specialize in,
Yes.
so we know a little bit about them,
There's also a ton of ongoing series that went on through the 80s. A lot of usual suspects.
Comics like Batman, Detective Comics, Wonder Woman. Still popular. They've been around for a long time. Still popular through the 1980s.
We've got Flash, Uncanny X-Men, Fantastic Four, Amazing Spider-Man, The New Mutants, the Hulk, like every big major superhero.
Thor.
Yeah, Thor. All the big major superheroes were still running in the 80s, and they were very popular. Avengers.
They all developed into new storylines, and the 80s really brought a new sensibility to the way stories were written, and more adult in nature, where a grown-up rather than a little kid might enjoy it. Where in the 60s they were kind of farcical. In the 70s they started to kind of turn more towards adults.
Yes. So now we're going to be talking about series that started in the 80s, and boy, oh boy, are there a lot of them.
Yeah, and some of these, I'd say a lot of these are still going to this day.
Yeah.
That, kicking off this new era. One of them's a Punisher. Punisher, introduced in Amazing Spider-Man 129, was popular from day one. People liked this character, loved his costume. It wasn't until the 1980s that he got his first miniseries and then his first ongoing series.
Yes. The New Teen Titans started in 1980.
Yeah, and once again, a lot of key issues there. George Perez goodness through and through. Really cool books. I think that it falls in and out of popularity with people. But at the end of the day, last time I got a full set of them, we sold every issue, no problem.
Yep.
There's people that still appreciate that stuff. And I think that some of the key significance of those books are going to translate to future shows and etc.
Transformers, which we've mentioned previously in this video.
Yeah, and one thing I've realized about some of the series we're about to mention is that they were really popular in the beginning and they start to wane off later on, and those issues are harder to get. I mean, some of like the last 6-7 issues of Transformers, expensive and hard to find because they're much lower distribution. Mm-hmm. So this is when you start getting into more of the investment side of it. It's not the earlier issues. They were really popular and everyone was selling them. Remember, they weren't throwing them away, tearing off the covers anymore, so people had big backstocks. Later on, when the distribution went down by 60-70%, not as much of a backstock. Just a point.
Yeah. G.I. Joe is another big series that started in the 80s and had a long run.
Yep, and we feature one of those books at the end of this video, but once again, as you get into the last issues, hard to find, expensive, just expensive, raw. I mean, anyway.
Yeah, and then, of course, Usagi Yojimbo is a big series that started in the 80s and is very, very popular.
Cult following, super, super cool. I mean, just a cool character. Great storylines. I'll tell you, Comic Tropes did a great episode about Usagi Yojimbo and his storyline, his ongoing 30-year-long storyline. That's a must-watch if you've never seen it. Savage She-Hulk, this kicked off, once again, another real popular series. People were ready for that. The Wolverine ongoing series, I mean, everyone jumped on that bus, especially after that Frank Miller limited series. People were ready for him. He didn't need the X-Men to carry him. He could definitely run on his own. Sandman, incredible storytelling. I cannot tell you, I remember this from the 80s. People like, have you read the latest Sandman? It really blew people's mind, and it opened up this new, more philosophical, more deep and meaningful, and more developed writing that would continue on through the 80s with Grant Morrison and some other writers. So, yeah, if you're talking about the 80s, you have to mention the Sandman.
Well, yeah, it started in the 80s. This version of Sandman, at least.
Yeah, this is the third. This is the third incarnation, and it really has very little to do with the others.
It has nothing to do with the others.
Yeah. American Flag. Randall Flagg is in the new Peacemaker show, I think.
Oh,
so
okay.
This character's still around, and I think it's Randall Flagg Jr. or his son or something. I forget, but there's a long-running series. I have an entire set of these put away somewhere that are really nice, just due to lack of interest. No one's, hey man, you got any flags? Hasn't happened yet. Maybe after this video, I don't know. But
not yet.
Not that I could find them anyway.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which we mentioned previously, started in the 80s. Big deal.
So popular today. I'm telling you, every time we put up a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from this era, and even the new series that started later, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures, popular. People love...
Even the IDW ones that are new. Like, people like those too.
People love their mutant turtles. Yep.
Excalibur started in the 80s.
Yep, and once again, still a popular series. Some cool stuff going on in Excalibur.
Moon Knight.
A really popular series, and got popular again whenever his show went to Disney Plus. There's just cover after cover that, once again, the 80s covers are definitely worth collecting.
Omega Men, which had the first appearance of Lobo.
Yeah, issue number 3 has the first appearance of Lobo, and there's so many copies of this, but supply does not meet demand. They always sell, and people are always looking for Lobo's first appearance. He looked a little different then.
He sure did.
Here's a before, and here's an after.
He looked different.
And this is Jason Momoa. Okay. Next.
Next up is Silver Surfer Volume 2.
Yeah, and a bunch of keys in this run. I sell these pretty often, and I find myself having to explain, what the key significance is. First of all, this is where the Infinity Gauntlet came from. This is where Nebula became a cyborg. Cool series, great art. Great covers, popular then, and I think it has a future. Right? Just a really well-written series.
And I love Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four movie, so...
Yeah, it was a good depiction. She really liked that movie.
I did.
Yeah.
West Coast Avengers started in the 80s, which a lot of people love or hate.
Well, the West Coast Avengers is a lot of where the Wanda storyline came from.
Which I also love.
And some other, and that short miniseries with Vision and Scarlet Witch.
Yep.
But there was some good storytelling going on, some crazy storytelling going on.
It was a long series.
Fantasy sons that don't exist that end up becoming superheroes later on. So cool stuff.
X Factor is another one.
Yeah, and X Factor had some big keys. The first appearance of Apocalypse in X Factor 6. And others. Angel getting his wings amputated. It's a popular series, and another series we don't really have a problem selling.
Saga of the Swamp Thing. It's a big one.
Yeah, people really raved about the storytelling and the development of some really in-depth, good reading. So yeah, if you've never familiarized yourself with it, outside of all that, the covers are fantastic. And as the issues go on, they just get better and better. So what a great series.
Yep. Suicide Squad is another one.
Not as popular now, but Suicide Squad's been around since the 60s, so the reboot was very popular when it came out.
Justice League.
Yeah, issue number 1, Maxwell Lord is very relevant now. He's going to be in the Peacemaker show. He is the patron of the Justice League, and I think people are going to be a lot more familiarized with him.
Also, one we mentioned earlier, Love and Rockets.
I mean, there's not much to say. We're going to talk about them in a minute.
Yeah, and then also Grendel, which we're going to talk about later.
Well, cool art. Matt Wagner, right? Cool art, very popular still, hard to find. I mean, they don't pop up every day. We'll talk more about that in a minute.
Yeah,
too.
Concrete is another independent series that started in the 80s that was really popular.
Yeah, there was some great work being done in the 1980s.
Also, Dreadstar and Akira, the last two that I had on my list.
Yeah, Akira, by the
boom.
way, there's another series. We never have an issue. There's a lot of fandom around Akira today. They're all graphic novels. They're all square bound. Kind of difficult to find in high grade because people read them.
So before we get into like price points for this era, this decade, we want to just like briefly mention the horror series that were involved in the 80s.
Yeah, I personally think that the 1980s recovered what DC had lost in the 70s to a degree. There were some really good series in the 80s that the reading is superior. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say the reading is as good as EC in some cases, that there was a lot of time and attention put to it. Better than House of Mystery and House of Secrets, which sometimes, the covers, those are really about the covers with Neil Adams and Bernie Wrights and Jim Aparo and some other people doing these fantastic horror covers. The stories were not as good as EC, which I think is the gold standard for horror comics, and most of those came out in the early 50s. You hit in the 1980s, you get these fantastic covers, but they had these really nice interiors. The interior art was fantastic. The books were well made with thick paper. I personally love these books, just as a fan, but also as a collector, because there's some really cool covers and some good stories.
And a lot of them are really popular. So here are some of the series. Gore Shriek.
What covers? By the way, Frank Capullo's first work was in this series, if you didn't know that. Frank Capullo is the one who took the pencil when Todd McFarlane decided to step back off of Spawn.
Dead World is another series that came out in the 80s. They got some cool covers on these.
Cover candy. I mean, and there's more than one. So they had variants for all of these. If you like horror and you're not, that's the thing that surprises me. There's people who collect Bronze Age horror that skip the 80s. Don't. The 80s books are way cool and they're pretty affordable, and you can still find them in super high grade if that's the way you collect and that's what you like. It's just a great series.
Yeah, they did a regular cover and then they did a gory cover. It's pretty cool. Walking Dead.
Enough said. I mean, everyone knows The Walking Dead, and I wouldn't say their covers were as good as some of the other books we're talking about, but the story was.
Yeah, the story's the big one there.
Yeah.
And of course, Twisted Tales, which has some of the sickest covers. Bernie Wrights did one of them.
We've never had a problem selling these covers.
We've sold every single one of them multiple times.
Yeah, so Richard Corbin did the number 10. Throw that up there. Oh, yeah, the number 10 is like one of my favorite covers. And this is the kind of stuff I collect as a collector. If it's just for the cover, yes. I say yes.
Yeah, and Aliens number 1 came out in the 80s, and that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, Aliens coming to comic books, there's still Aliens being printed just about every year in some kind of short format, some kind of, story arc. There's a new movie that just came out, so Aliens is intellectual property that just keeps going and going, much like The Predator.
Now we're going to be talking about price points in this era.
Yeah, we're going to break down some books. I'm going to start off with, this is an affordable era that you can basically get these books reasonably cheap.
Quote unquote. There's some caveats there. As you'll see later.
Yeah, you're going to be surprised. But if you want a raw copy and you're not as grade centric, a lot of these are gettable for under $300.
Yeah, they're all going to be on eBay. Like you could find one right now. Well,
yeah,
most of them.
in any 10-year period to get the big books for this price, I think is great. I think as time goes on, as they get nestled into collections, that might change a little bit. You'll find some of this information interesting. There's also some nuance added to this era from the last era, and that's Canadian price variants, where Mark Jewelers started in the early 70s. They ended in the early 90s, so the 80s was their heyday. And a lot of the big key books have a Mark Jeweler variant. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but that does add a lot of expense. That's like the base model of a car to that car if it had wings and flew. So it's like a huge bridge of price difference.
I have some data points. The main period for Marvel and DC comics for Canadian price variants was Marvel October 1982 to 86 and September 1982 to 88 for DC. So very short period of time for both of them.
And different.
And different. Because was at different time periods for each.
You may not have known that.
Which is interesting. These comics were created due to currency fluctuations between the US and Canada, which made it necessary to charge a higher price for comics sold in Canada. Later, you'd find a US price variant and a Canadian price variant on the cover. Less than 2% of comics in this period are estimated to be a Canadian price variant.
So if you ever wondered, like, who cares? Yeah, people care that these are not variant covers in terms of it's the exact same comic book. They're not second prints, which is a big distinction to make. This is the exact same comic book released somewhere else with a different price, and it makes it an actual rare version of that book where there's, like she said, 98% don't look like that. So we're going to show you in some of the prices these books fetch, the difference that collectors are willing to pay for these rare books in the highest grades.
And if you don't know what a Mark jeweler is, they were distributed at military bases.
And around military bases.
With a jewelry insert on the inside with a newsstand on the front.
Yeah, it was a paper stock, double truck. It sometimes had sticker on it where you could seal it, tear it out, seal it, and send it in. Sometimes it was just cardstock. And also they would stamp the cover with a star.
Some of them did.
So some of them you'll see a star, which doesn't take away. It's actually, I love when they have the star on it. Like, yeah, that's a Mark jeweler. Especially if you're looking through a bag and you see that star, you're like,
less than 5% of newsstands in this era were Mark jewelers. So also very low amount.
And there are people that only collect Mark jewelers. We know people that is like, if there's a Mark jewelers anything, they're on board because they love that harder to get nuance of this particular type of variant. Okay, now we're going to break down some books that we picked out that we thought were worth talking about their values, some different grades, and some nuances with them. We're going to start with Transformers #1.
It came out in 1984. Bill Sienkiewicz did the cover. It was the origin and first comic appearance of the Autobots and the Decepticons. So all of my data points are gathered from GP analysis and cover price. So there may be some sales information that I don't see on here that may be sold through like auction houses and stuff like that.
There's sales that are not attributed electronically. However, here's the way I look at this. This information is solid. It's not perfect. It's not complete. If it was a road map, it'd get you to the right town, maybe even the right street. Might not get you to the right exact house. You know what I'm saying? Because there's variation. So from year to year, there's auctions and all kinds of stuff that sell books outside of this data. But a comic seller or anyone who talks to you guys and has a YouTube channel is going from the same kind of data.
Yes. So just also to caveat, all of these data points are going to be based off of a CGC 9.8 grading.
Yeah, professionally graded in a plastic case with information. This is the way that investors buy books traditionally, not only. So you can also get a raw copy. You should really know what you're buying, know how to grade, and make sure that it's accurate because there can be a huge difference from grade to grade.
Yes. So for a direct sale in 9.8 of Transformers #1, the most recent sale in 2025 was $850.
Which is down, right?
Well, the highest sale in 2025 was $1,150, and the highest sale of all time was $3,202. That was in 2021.
It's funny, too. Some people will see a book like this. It's up here. And as it's going down, they'll be like, buy now. 6 months later, it's down here. Oh, I should have bought there. I'm going to sell it. And then it continues to go down. So this book's going down. However, I think it's going to flatten out. It's always going to be popular. Still making movies, still a lot of stuff around it. But let's talk about some other versions of this issue that might be more expensive.
Yeah, so newsstand edition. And most recent sale of a newsstand was in 2025 was $2,500, which is pretty decent.
2x.
And the highest it's sold for in this year is $4,000 in newsstand.
Don't understand. I do not understand that sale.
Newsstand is the one to get.
It sounds fake. That sale doesn't sound right. I think someone overpaid, but whatever. Are two more of those going to sell for $4,000? I don't know. It really depends on like who's buying and who's selling and when it is. Maybe there's not another newsstand on the market and this person's willing to throw extra money in the game. I personally wouldn't spend $4,000 on a newsstand copy of this because I know there's more out there that haven't been slabbed yet, even though a lot have been slabbed.
Yeah, well, I didn't mention the census data on this. There's 8,051 total graded copies.
And there's more out there, I'm telling you.
852 9.8s and 4 9.9s.
And that's a lot. And believe it or not, sometimes that's lower than you think because we're going to say some other books that have a lot more.
Yeah.
But this is definitely an investable book. If you're able to pick this up very cheap, wow, you've scored, because this book's in high demand, especially in high grade.
Also, there is a Canadian price variant that sold in 2024 for $3,800.
And there you're talking about a very hard to find book. That's where I think if you're going to focus on, unlike the rarest version of this, Canadian price variant, I think would be the one that's hardest to
More
find.
than the newsstand, I would probably want that one.
Canadian price variant, if that difference in price really makes you happy, then that's where you find it, on a Canadian price variant. And most people do not have a copy like that.
So if we were to buy this today raw, what would we be looking at?
You can buy a raw copy of this, as long as it's, not 9.8 graded, for around $100, maybe $150. That's affordable. I mean, so if this is a book you got to have, I think you could go on eBay or at a claim sale and find a reasonable copy. Just kind of do your homework and know, so you don't overspend. You should spend to the grade, whatever the grade is. They're not all one price.
Next book, Marvel Superhero Secret Wars #8 from 1984.
So the original art for this sold a few years back for over $1 million. Mike Zeck cover. Story's incredible. The story talks about how this is actually a galactic being rather than just an outfit. And it really is the beginning of Venom.
Yep, it's the origin of the black costume.
Yeah, so, this is where it all kind of starts. That, wait, it's more than just a black costume. This book's popular.
It is. 34,353 total graded copies. 7,738 9/8s. 28 9/9s, and 5 10/0s of this book.
Yeah, so there's a lot of these printed. I do not have the print count, but there's a lot printed, and a lot of people have ran to their comic presser and got them slabbed to reap the benefits of having 1 or 100 copies of this, however many you had. And guess what? The market just keeps absorbing them, and they still are an expensive book.
Yes.
But they've had some ups and downs.
Yes. So a 9/8 just recently sold for $384, which is
so cheap.
Insane to me.
That's so cheap.
The highest it's sold for this year is $772. So there is something weird going on out there.
A glutted market, and also, time. It's like when you sell it, how many people are on the market. And I've seen a lot of books go for their lowest this year.
A 9/9. A 9/9 sold for $9,300.
Different conversation, right? So,
but there are so many 9/9s and 10/0s, it makes a 9/8 not as valuable.
Waters it down.
It does.
Yeah. So Rachel, and we were talking as we were doing research, she's like, wow, you can really tell with the advent of these higher grades being more likely to happen that the prices are dropping on these 9/8s.
Yeah, they're not as desirable.
It's something you should pay attention to. Personally, I'm not interested in 9/9s and 10/0s until I get one. It's like, if I submit one and it's 10/0, it's like, yeah, but before that, I'm not going to go buy it.
Because it's going to go for so much money, more than it should, probably.
I have been attracted to that, but I mean, as a collector, I think 9.4 and 9.6 is a good grade to collect, and you're talking about an exceptional comic book in 9.6. 10.0, is 10.0 going to look vastly different than a 9.8? I don't think so. I bet you couldn't tell in most cases.
Probably not, other than on the case.
But you can tell on the price tag.
Sure can.
I promise you that.
All right, some newsstand info. The most recent newsstand sold for $1,160.
3x over the direct.
The last sale, or the highest sale of a newsstand was $1,800 this year.
Yeah, once again, that's a huge delta. I think it goes ebbs and flows in popularity. Being in the cognoscente, people are talking about it. I think comic book collectors and investors sometimes get swept up into enthusiasm, where this one, I think you take 2 steps back because there's a couple of copies that are slabbed. You can find the copy in your price. You want a well-centered copy. You want to do all that research of getting the right copy. But this book's an investable book, and I don't think it's going to go away because of the storyline, because of the cover art. There's just a lot going on that's right with this book.
Yeah, and there is a Canadian price variant and a Mark Jewelers. So the Canadian price variant just recently sold for $1,700.
In what grade?
9.8.
So it was a little more newsstand, but this is one of those books I think that you can see huge variations. You might see it 2, 3, 4x more. Just depends on the market and who's looking. Well, so I still think that the Canadian price variant is the way to go on the most rare version of this.
The Mark Jewelers sold for $5,800. This year.
Shut the front door.
9.8.
Yeah.
If you wanted to get a raw copy of this, how much would you have to pay for it?
What, $100, $150?
Yep. Now, you would have to not care about the grade. There's caveats there, but you could attain one for around that much. That's
a great thing about the 80s, I want to point out. Almost every book we're talking about, you can get. There's a couple that you better have thick wallets for a low-grade copy. But most of these, you could just go get a copy if that's what you want, and it won't break the bank.
Right. All right, next book. Batman 357 from 1983. Giordano did the cover. There it is.
This comic book has been much more popular in the past. Right now, it's out of favor. It's just not. And now, at some point, they're going to use this character, and he'll be popular again.
Yeah, it's got 2,648 total copies, 325 9/8.
It's not bad.
Not a bad ratio.
That's not a bad ratio.
Most recent sale of a 9/8 was $540.
Okay, it's down from its high for sure.
Highest sale this year was $630, but the highest it ever sold for was $1,750. That was in the Comic Boom 2021.
Yeah, I think the Comic Boom put false inflationary numbers on these books they may never hit again. But this one is holding its own to a degree.
Now, if it was a newsstand, the most recent sale of a newsstand of this book was $800.
There you go. It's 1.5, right? So it's like 50% more than the direct version.
Mm-hmm. The highest sale of this year was $960 in a newsstand.
Almost double.
And there was no Mark Jewelers of this book, but there was a Canadian price variant in 9/8. It sold for $960 as well, which is interesting.
That was a good bargain, I think.
I think that's a good deal for that.
for that, would I spend $1,000 of my dollars? I'm not into the Canadian price variants as much.
I mean, it really is. You have to want it.
It's for the collector that wants everything, right?
Yeah.
Like I have every version that was ever printed of Killer Croc because Killer Croc.
Right, yeah.
Anyway.
And if you wanted to get a high-grade copy of this, you could get it for around $100 raw.
Yeah.
High-grade, which is pretty
High-grade raw.
nice.
You look on eBay, you're going to find a copy, and now you got the first cameo appearance of Killer Croc, who's a major bad guy in the Batman world.
Bad guy. All right, next book. Hulk 340 from 1988. Iconic Todd McFarlane, Hulk versus Wolverine cover.
It's one of the must-own books of the 80s, I think. I think most people want this cover. Even if you don't like Hulk, if you don't like Todd McFarlane even.
If
what
you
a
don't like
fun...
Hulk, what's happening to you?
I don't know what's wrong with you, but what a fun cover. This
you don't like Mark Ruffalo? Anyway.
Let's look at the numbers, because this book's been hot forever, since it first came out.
So 15,054 copies are slabbed on the census.
A couple.
1,647 of those are 9/8, and there are 3 9/9s.
Yeah, so how much does just a 9/8 direct cost of this book?
Most recent sale was $1,170.
That's not bad, actually.
The highest it sold for this year is $1,395.
It's not a bad fluctuation, 20, 15, 20%.
The highest it's ever sold for is $2,400.
It's a lot of money. I mean, that was Comic Boom numbers,
That was 2021,
right?
yeah. I just like to throw that in there just to compare.
We need it. It's good. I mean, maybe that's what it'll be in 20 years or something. But I think that the non-direct copies of this are a little more.
Y'all. All right. Most recent sale of a newsstand in 9/8, $2,805.
Massive. Highest
sale this year in newsstand, $3,500.
I wonder how that book looked. Was it perfectly centered? I mean, that's a lot more. It's triple. It's triple from a direct.
Yep.
Wow.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. And you know what? They're harder to find, but they're not impossible to find in newsstand. I'm telling you right now.
There were no Canadian price variants, but the one Mark Jeweler sale that's on GPA was from 2023, 9/8, $14,999.
Forget about it. That is, wow.
Jaw dropped.
That's like an Avengers #1 in 7.5.
It's crazy.
It's a lot of money. I mean, people
love it.
Collectors like rarity. And the more into that you are, you might say, I want the rarest. I want something no one else has. I need that for my personal game I'm playing with myself, which I understand. I have my own goals and ambitions for comic books too. Has nothing to do with you. Has to do with me, but it might have to do with what other people have. I want one that's unique and different. And there's only one. There's only one on the market.
There was only one sale on GPA of a Mark Jeweler.
There's only one noted sale.
I wanted to preface this too. I meant to say it earlier, but Mark Jeweler on GPA is like a fairly new point.
They haven't always put it on there.
So that is like a new data point from like the last couple of years. So some of the newsstand sales might be Mark Jewelers, but I don't think so. If you're gonna go buy a raw copy of this today in like mid-grade, how much could you get it for?
Between $150 and $200, which, you know what? It's one of the coolest books ever, and you could probably get picky and find one that presents really well in a lower grade and be quite happy with it. Cover candy. Once again, Todd McFarlane making a name for himself with this book. After this book, all floodgates were on, everyone knew who Todd McFarlane was.
Next is G.I. Joe 21, the silent issue from 1984. It's the first appearance of Storm Shadow, and Jansen did the cover.
No dialogue in this comic book, and it's been popular ever since it came out.
I won't like
I've
to
read
see
this. Well, I looked at this.
one. Can you read it?
It's interesting. I mean, it's really a cool book, but boy, I think it's probably the most sought after G.I. Joe comic book outside the number one, maybe more. Yeah.
Well, I think the numbers definitely speak for themselves here. 3,454 total graded copies, which isn't very high. 192 or 9/8. There is
That's
a 99.
low. That's a low census number.
And there's 199 out there.
When I say low, I mean low in comparison to the others. When we go back into other eras, you're going to find that there's not 192 graded of something.
Yeah.
But for this era, that's much lower than having like 8,000 of one or 10,000.
The Marvel Superhero
Yeah.
Secret Wars 8, yeah.
So that's much lower. Yeah.
So the most recent sale of this book in 9/8 went for $2,400.
I get that.
The highest was also the most recent sale. $2,400 is the highest it sold for this year.
Yep.
Highest overall that it's ever sold for is $5,000, and that was during the boom. Newsstand edition, most recent newsstand sale was $6,000.
That's sick.
It's also
Oh.
the highest it's ever sold for in newsstand, with $6,000. So this book's popping off right now.
I imagine somebody was waiting in the wings for a long time to find that newsstand edition.
It
when
is
they finally-
ironic that both are the highest of the most recent sales. Interesting.
Interesting.
Yes, there is a Canadian price variant and a Mark Jeweler sale on GPA for both of for this book. The Canadian price variant is a 9.4. They did not have a 9.8. It sold for $23.97 in
That's sick.
2021.
That's sick. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
The Mark Jeweler only sold once in 2024, and it's a 9.2. It sold for $401. I feel like that's a pretty
What
good deal.
year?
2024.
Yeah.
9.2 isn't super.
That grade is like a cusp. If it was a 9.6, it would have sold for a lot more. Anyway, still
If it was a
expensive.
9.4, it would go for more.
There, I guarantee whoever got that is super happy with that book today. To
Absolutely.
have that in Mark Jeweler.
Yeah, for sure. If you were to buy this book today raw in like a mid-grade copy, how much would you
You can
spend?
get this for between $100 and $150. You'll notice that pattern until we get to some of these books. Most of these are really gettable at affordable prices if you're not like a grade hound. I am. Not that I'd never buy something that wasn't 9.8, because 9.8's not my grade. I really like 9.4s and 9.6s, because I just don't want to see anything wrong with it. I want it to look new. You can get a copy of this on eBay, on a claim sale, affordable.
And the raw prices that I'm gathering are from cover price, just like their average for like mid-grade. So just so you know where I'm getting those numbers from.
From actual sales, it's not an estimate.
Yes. All right, next book is Amazing Spider-Man 238 from 1983. It's the first appearance of Hobgoblin, John Romita Sr. and John Romita Jr. collab.
In our very first video, we had slabbed a 9.8 newsstand of this. So
And it's sick.
yeah, great book.
It
Great
is a
book.
great book.
Popular, very popular, and it's been swiped and swiped and swiped.
13,566 total graded copies on the census. 984 9.8s and 2 9.9s.
910 a coming somewhere down the line. Everyone's cracking their 9.8s now to see if they can press clean it and get a 10.0.
So the most recent sale of this in 9.8 was $1,200.
Down from its high, massively.
The highest it sold for this year is $28.50.
That's a huge, yeah. I'm always leery when you see deltas like that are 100% more.
Like something's wrong.
Especially when it was high and low in the past. It's kind of like a stock. If you look at something that is that volatile, I stay away from it. Wait till it solidifies. I think, I'm going to put this out there. I think it's good advice for anyone to take to buy books when they're cold and low priced. That may not work for you because you might have the fear of missing out, that it's never going to go down. And I'll tell you, every comic book goes down at some point. You might not have the patience, wherewithal, or energy to keep looking for it over and over again. And I get that. I mean, sometimes trading money for comics is like, I'll give you more if I just get what I want and I can move on in life. I get that.
The highest this has ever sold for is $4,000, and that was in 21.
When I had got that book back from CGC, it was going down every day.
Yeah, well, yours was a newsstand, so let's look at the newsstands.
Yep.
The most recent sale of a newsstand was also $1,200, the same as the 9.8 Direct, which is
Crazy.
insane to me.
That was somebody got lucky.
The highest a newsstand sold for is $1,900, so that's even down. Lower than the highest it sold for in Direct.
Yeah, in the past it had gone for a lot more, because when I was looking at them, I was seeing auctions where they were going for $5,000 on Comic Link and such. So people were paying $4,500 because they're out there. Anyway.
Yeah, there is a Canadian price variant and a Mark Jeweler sale on here. The Canadian price variant sold in 2023 for $4,850.
Crazy.
And there was only one Mark Jeweler GPA sale from 2025, so it's very recent. $15,400 for a Mark Jeweler. Okay, so if you were going to buy a raw copy of ASM 238,
you can get a copy for like $120 in mid-grade. So like if you're really wanting this book, once again, affordable.
Yep.
You know, it fits into just about any collector's budget on what a premium book would cost.
Next book, Amazing Spider-Man 252 from 1984, first appearance of the black costume, Amazing Fantasy 15 homage. Jansen did the cover.
I really love this cover, and it's a very popular book. And once again, this ties in with Marvel's Secret Wars number 8. There was 3 books at the time. It was Marvel Team Up 141, Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 8, and then Amazing Spider-Man 252. They were all known as the first appearances of the black suit. I think they all came out within the same month. So it was 3 different series that featured Spider-Man, all showing him with his new black outfit. This one is very popular. What are they going for these days?
Well, there's 22,881 total graded copies.
That's insane.
1,919 9/8 and 8 9/9.
That's like the population of a pretty mid-sized town.
Insane.
22,000.
The most recent sale of a direct 9/8 was $945. It's pretty good.
I'd say that's pretty good.
The highest it sold for this year is $1,298.
Once again, the comic boom really kind of tilted the prices, but it's not a cheap comic book. It shows that there's a huge fandom behind this book. What about variations on this book?
Yeah, so the most recent sale of a newsstand was $1,279, and the highest sale of a newsstand was $1,680 this year.
So the newsstand versus direct is different, but not by a great deal on this particular book.
There's also a Canadian price variant and a Mark Jeweler sale. The Canadian price variant was in 2025. There's one sale this year for $1,913.
That's a big difference.
And the Mark Jeweler sold in 2023 for $15,700 in 9/8.
I mean, that's insane. However, look, this is a very iconic cover.
Yeah.
An iconic creation, which would be Venom, all being kind of introduced through the Spider-Man series, mid-'80s. And you know what? As time goes on, I don't know, $15,000 is a lot of money, but you never know if that's a good buy or not. A lot of people don't have to make that choice because there's only one.
Right. Next up is Amazing Spider-Man 300 from 1988. Todd McFarlane, iconic cover. Everybody knows about this. Origin and first appearance of Venom. Here he is.
Another cover that's been swiped and swiped and swiped because it's just simple yet elegant. It's just a beautiful book.
39,455 total graded copies. It's insane. 2,152 9/8. 10 9/9.
That's 5%. So about 5% of all graded copies are 9/8. That's not bad. In the world of 9/8s, that's not bad. That means 95% of all graded copies are not a 9/8.
I would assume they're probably 9.4. I didn't get that information though. The most recent sale of this book in 9/8 sold for $2,400.
That's cheap.
That's
in comparison to what the prices have been in the past.
The highest sale this year is $3,142.
Okay.
The highest sale of all time for this book in 9/8, $9,200.
Yeah, it went nuts, and I think that as many as these that are graded, they're popular. There's a lot out there. There's going to be other books that come along, and people are going to have to jockey on what they want to spend their money on and what they want to add to their collection. Notice we just did 3 Spider-Man books in a row. Spider-Man was blowing up in the 80s.
Yeah. The most recent sale for a newsstand sold for $8,100.
Oh.
But it's so weird. The highest it sold for this year was $12,795. I saw that number and I was like, this seems wrong.
50% difference. Sometimes I think there's glitches in the matrix, man.
I looked up the book. It's a newsstand. I saw it in GPA. It shows you. I think there was whoever got the $8,100 one.
You need to be careful when you're buying these. Really examine the book. But I think a pristine copy would definitely fetch more than one that you can see some things and it just made it under the wire.
Well, the highest sale a newsstand has ever made was in 2023 for $15,600.
That's insane.
No Canadian price variance, no Mark Jeweler sales on GPA for this one.
Yeah, that's a supply and demand thing again. That's people having a lot of money wanting to invest in a book and not caring if they're paying more than the last person. It should be your goal in life never to be the person who pays the most for a book. take it from me, because I have an ouch.
Next book. If you wanted to buy this book today, let's say like a low grade copy.
Between $2 and $2.50, you could probably get a nice presenting copy.
Something that was interesting is like the price of an average low grade book on cover price was the same as like a mid grade slab. So be picky about what you're buying.
Yeah, Rachel, when we were doing our research, Rachel had pointed out, she goes, you can get a 7.0 slab for that too. So as you kind of go through and figure these things out, I can't emphasize enough, please do your research. I mean, if you're going to invest in books and spend a lot of money, wait until the perfect copy kind of lands in your lap, because there's one or two of these slabbed, and there's a lot more raw copies as well. Don't forget that. There's tons of raw copies. So you can own this book somewhat affordably.
Next up is New Teen Titans, number 2 from 1980. First appearance of Deathstroke, George Perez cover.
Love this book.
There it is.
I had a 9.8 of this, and I really didn't want to sell it when I did. I had it for a long time. It was a newsstand edition. I love this book. And Deathstroke's a popular character in this universe, DC.
Yes, this has 8,469 total copies. 1,114 of them are 9.8. There's a 9.9.
Wow.
199.
So, see, the ratio there's a lot. There's almost what, 13-14%. That's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of 9.8s out there. The most recent sale in 9.8 was $425.
Cheap.
The highest it ever sold for this year was $700.
Yeah, so it's like 70% more in that particular case. So this book's still popular. It is still kind of volatile from the comic boom.
Well, yeah, the highest it ever sold for was $1,800, and that was in the comic boom 2022.
Multiples, yeah.
If you were to get a newsstand, it most recently sold for $527 in 9.8.
Yeah, not a big difference from the direct.
The highest it ever sold for in newsstand was $780, only $80 more than it sold in direct, which is interesting.
Yep.
There are no Canadian price variants that have sold, but a UK price variant sold for $1,500 in 2021.
That's pretty cool.
Which is a lot for a UK price variant, I feel.
It is.
No Mark Jewelers information on this one.
If you've ever seen a Mark Jewelers or a Canadian price variant of this, drop it in the comments.
Let us know. And then if you were to buy this book raw today in like a mid-grade, how much would you spend?
$80.
Easy.
$100.
Easy at 80.
For the first Deathstroke and a great cover and the beginning of a really cool storyline in New Teen Titans.
Next book. Saga of the Swamp Thing, number 37 from 1985. First full appearance of John Constantine. Bisette cover.
The Hellblazer.
The Blazer.
Great cover, too. And the Saga of the Swamp Thing was kicking it on every piston at this point. And this book was really popular when I came back. How's it doing today?
Well, there's 4,747 total graded copies. 489 9.8s, 2 9.9s.
About 10%. Okay.
Most recent sale in 9.8 was $1,260.
That's pricey.
And the highest it sold for was $1,450 this year, so not too much higher.
Yeah, it's kind of stabilized. I think a 20% variation is pretty normal.
Highest it ever sold for was $3,700 during the comic boom.
Wow.
Yikes. Newsstand, most recent sale of a newsstand was $2,095.
Okay, a little higher. Yeah, a little higher.
Highest sale was $2,095. That was the highest it's ever sold for a newsstand this year.
And what about any Canadian price variants?
Yes, there's a Canadian price variant and a Mark Jewelers sale that I was able to pull up. The Canadian price variant was a 9.6. It sold in 2024 for $2,325. And a 9.0 Mark Jewelers sold for $1,275 in 2021. I feel like that would sell for a lot more today.
Okay, crack out your 9.8 Saga Swamp Thing 37s in newsstand. Send me a picture.
Drop it down below.
Drop it down below.
If you were to buy a low-grade copy of this, low-grade.
Yeah, a low-grade copy. She's trying to keep things around $100. She's like, I gotta go lower.
Gotta get like a good plus.
Yeah, I gotta get the threes. $100. You can get a copy for $100.
Yes. All right, next series of books that we're going to be showing and talking about are independents. So these are books that were not Marvel or DC.
Yeah, and this era, the 80s, I said it's pretty affordable. I think you can get a lot of things. That was then. This is now.
Not these books, you guys, okay? Oh my gosh. Okay, so first book we're talking about in this independent area is Albedo number 2 from 1983, the first appearance of Usagi Yojimbo.
That little thing.
355 total graded copies.
Very low census for this era.
24 9.8s.
Yeah, so it's less than 10% 9.8s, which, wow. If you're looking for a 9.8, you might have a hard time.
Most recent sale for a 9.8 direct.
Of one of these 28 9.8s.
$28,880.
It's a car. You just bought a car.
The highest it's ever sold for, a 9.8, was $55,200.
It's crashing. This book is crashed.
What
Yeah, if you invested it at $44,000 and sold it for $28,000, you're not happy. Just saying.
It's crazy. If you were to buy a raw copy of this today,
Can I get that for $150?
no.
How much is a raw of this?
The most recent raw sale had no grade on cover price. It sold for $1,300. Does it have a cover? I don't know. No idea.
Inside this envelope,
There's a book, I think.
it's a mystery box.
Next book, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, first print from 1984, first appearance and origin of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
We all know this book is very expensive.
Only 3,000 copies printed.
Printed.
the
There's other
first print.
printings, and there's a lot of total accumulated copies between the first and fifth printing. Even more. You drop it in the comments if you remember how many printings, or even how many were totally printed of the first issue. But let's just talk about the first printing.
Well, of the first print, a third of them are slabbed. 1,340 total graded copies. 45 of them are 9.8s.
Where's the other half?
They're just out there.
I've seen a couple actually floating in collections out there.
The most recent sale in 9.8 of this book was $87,000.
That's real money. Real money.
The highest it's ever sold for in 2021 was $245,000.
Ouch.
It almost never trades, so I don't have any kind of other information about it, but the average raw price for this book, $10,000.
Yeah, this is a book that if your goal in life is to get a copy, you've got to throw money at it. The other option is just to get one of the later printings. They go down incrementally. None of them are cheap. They're not just cheap, because they're still, in demand. So this is definitely an investment book that someone who invested years ago is hurting now because it's gone down so much. But at the end of the day, it's worth a lot of money because the intellectual property on this book is popular. It is popular all the time. Doesn't matter what year. It's just going to be around for a while. I think 50 years from now, people will know who the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are.
Probably.
That's all I'm saying.
Next book is Love and Rockets #1 from 1982, the first appearance of Love and Rockets.
I think a lot of people may not even know what this is. If you're only a superhero fan or you stay away from independents, check this out.
Yeah, the same publishing company that did Usagi Yojimbo did this one, Fantagraphics. There's 117 total graded copies.
Low.
198.
Low.
Most recent sale, or the only sale ever that I could find on GPA of a 9.8 was $3,824.
What year
and that
was
was
that?
in 2017.
Yeah, I think this book is astronomical. If it comes to market, if you're a collector, if you're a comic reseller, how often do you see this? I've never seen a copy.
Cover Price said that there was
Never
a raw...
seen one at a convention. I've never
I've
seen a
looked.
copy of this. Yeah.
Cover Price said that a raw copy and no grade sold for $100, and I just don't believe that. I don't believe that that's true unless it was like a rag. That's kind of where I'm at with that. So
Missing 8 pages.
I don't know if you can actually do that.
Well, how about Gobbledygook #1? There's another kind of obscure Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book that's really collectible.
It's the first ad of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's what makes it a key.
Isn't that crazy?
This is the weirdest thing. So the only sales that are on GPA for this book are signed file copies. So there are no just like regular old slabs on there.
Because I don't think anyone cared about Gobbledygook when it came out
Probably
that
not.
much,
A 9.0 file copy, which is the highest graded copy that's on GPA, sold for $38,400 in 2022.
So this is like, hey, there's somebody called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the very first time they were ever mentioned, and the true collectors got to have the very first mention of them in publication, and this was it.
24 total graded copies, 2 9.4s. 9.4 is the highest grade that you will find of that book.
Yeah. So could you get an affordable raw copy of that, do you think?
No.
Okay.
If you can, buy it, because you'd be silly not to. Final book that we're discussing today is Primer #2 from 1982, the first appearance of Grendel, aka Hunter Rose.
Yeah, so I've owned this book. I've sold this book. Popular. I've sold it raw. Great way to sell a book because they're cheaper. They're just going to go cheaper, especially if you find a comic reseller that knows how to grade and we'll make sure to guarantee that what you're getting is what you think it is, because these books were read. They weren't as collected because people might not have taken them as serious as other superhero comic books. This book, let's talk about the numbers.
Yeah, so there's 972 total graded copies.
It's a lot for an independent, small independent on a lower run. Yeah.
Well, yeah, first appearance, that makes sense. 53.98's pretty good amount, I feel like.
5% is a good number, 5 or less. Yeah.
That means it's a good.
5% of all graded copies being at that grade, that's pretty good.
There's only one sale in 9.8 from this year. It's $3,090.
Not cheap.
The highest sale ever was $6,800, and that was in 2022.
Yeah, I think that this is a good book if you're able to find it for the right price that people will want later on, because it's a snapshot into this 80s, almost street art, edgy, independent voice that was coming out through all kinds of stuff from Silverwolf publications. There was all kinds of independent stuff going on. We're just touching the tip of the sword here. We're not really deep diving, just giving an overview and perspective. But yeah, this book is kind of a must-have from that era. So is The Crow #1. We're not going to dive into that. Caliber, the series Caliber introduced The Crow in their #1. There's just tons and tons of independent books that we're not talking about, but it's not because we don't appreciate them. It's just we don't want to be here for 5 hours.
All right, so now that we've done all of this, let's take a look at the whole decade and rate it 1 through 5.
Is the 80s a good era to invest in? I'll tell you, if you like this material, you'll have plenty of stuff to keep you busy for a long, long time. Some things are harder to find than others, especially the end of runs. Publication numbers dropped and they were producing a lot less. So if you're a completist, you might have a hard time at the end instead of the beginning. Independent-wise, it really kicked off something that's just like a wildfire now. There's all kinds of independent comics with some iconic things that are going to be talked about and collected for decades to come. So what are the criteria for our ratings?
Yes, so we have 5 different ratings. Each one we're going to rate 1 through 5, 1 being low, 2 being moderate, 3 being average, 4 being above average, and 5 being high.
Yep.
So the first key point is availability. Are these books going to be available to people for people to buy?
You're not going to focus on the things that are almost impossible, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, although I think you can pretty much find a copy. I mean, there's only 3,000 of the first edition printed, but you'll find other copies. But outside of that, a lot of these books are pretty available. We rated this pretty high.
We rated it a 4.
It's got 4 out of 5 in terms of, like, you can find this stuff. If you really want to put together an 80s collection, every book came out in the 80s, I think you could do it.
The next one's demand. Do people want to buy these books?
Every single Monday we sell books from the 80s, and they sell. There's lots of people that are interested in putting together the runs, getting the keys, being introduced to new titles, and all of a sudden they look at it and say, that's killer, I'd like to get a hold of that. So what do we rate that?
We rated that a 4, above average.
Yep.
Price, are they selling?
Are they?
People want to buy them.
Yeah. Are they affordable? Can you get them? Is the price prohibitive? And if it was high, that would mean no, they're going to be really expensive. If it was a 1, it would be like they're dirt cheap. What do we rate this at?
We rated this one a 3.
Average. Yeah, they're average. I mean, I think that you're going to spend a little more for these than a new book in grade. Now, you can find a bunch of these in dollar boxes, but you can find a bunch of anything in a dollar box. Even I've seen Golden Age books in dollar boxes. When you get to super high grade, which is what these, investment grade for these is almost across the board 9.8 in terms of like finding the hardest to get copies in the highest grade. So I think that a $10 average is probably right. You can get 9.4s, 9.6s raw all day, in most of these books until you get to the keys.
Right, which is why we give it a 3.
Right.
Next is track record of sales. Do they have consistent sales across the board?
Yeah, we've had 45 years to check this out, and they do. And consistent doesn't mean they're always going up, because books do undulate up and down. We think that as time goes on, these will continue to be sought after and sell because of the artists, because of the stories, because of
the new characters and the
all the things
series
going on. And they're still being like, they're leading the pack. A lot of these stories are still coming back, and a lot of these characters are still around. So
yeah, we gave track record of sales a 4.
Yeah, it's a pretty good track record. It's a good era to kind of focus on if you're looking for some cool books that kind of started it, or that have some really good content in terms of the quality of the writing, the quality of the art. Yeah.
And the final category is relevance. Will these be relevant in the future? Will people care about them?
Is Deathstroke going to be around in 100 years?
Is Punisher going to be around? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
More than Deathstroke.
We think yes.
Yeah.
We really do. We gave this one a 4 as well. So overall, we had 19 total points out of 25 for this decade.
I would say that this is investable. I would say in the older eras, this is kind of the end of a legacy in terms of our generation. Remember, people just starting collecting now in your 20s or younger, this is going to be your golden age.
Yes.
These came out 40 years ago. When I started reading comics and collecting in the late 1960s, 70s, golden age comics came out in the 50s were only 20 years old. For me, in the 70s, books that came out in the 30s are the same distance as someone collecting right now reading these.
Right.
40 years ago,
Yep.
right? So
They've been around a while. Which is why we gave this decade an overall score of 3.75.
we love 80s books. I mean,
This is a sweet spot for us.
They're great.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it.
It's long.
It's a long one.
And I hope it was worth your time. But
I
anyway,
sure hope so.
We'll see you again. We make videos every week.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like and comment on this video.
That helps us out if you do that. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye now.